Hello, welcome back to Data Driven Finance, brought to you by Envestnet Yodlee. I'm Mike Stiles, and my guest today is Jose Tagunicar, who's into product strategy, analytics, risk management at Stratyfy. Jose was previously with FICO and Equifax. Now, we're going to be talking about how AI is being planned for and applied, particularly in the credit space of finserv. So, at the moment, Jose is at FICO World 2024 in San Diego. So, Jose, we really appreciate you taking a few minutes out of those activities to be with us.
Great to be here. Thank you.
I guess to get us started, just kind of tell us what Stratyfy does and your role in it.
Oh, okay, no problem. So, Stratyfy, the founders of Stratyfy, which is a small fintech company that was founded about 7 years ago, they saw a couple of problems. One of the problems that they saw was that small to mid-sized banks were really losing their to larger banks. And historically, they've been losing to larger banks at a rapid pace. And when you kind of uncover the reasons why they're losing, really fundamentally, their analytics wasn't strong enough. They feel that they don't have the analytic prowess, or they could use the current analytic tools that's out there. And advanced analytics, be it advanced ML or AI, is out of reach for them, or they felt that they weren't big enough. And so the founders of Stratyfy, they have this patent pending technology called the probabilistic rules engines that helps solve that problem for them. It's a combination of an advanced machine learning ML algorithm that evaluates the rules, but more importantly, the rules can be adjusted with human intervention. So it adjusts the rules based on the business experience of the analyst or the lending officer that will use these rules for any decisions across the life cycle. So it's easily adjusted. And what this does for the lenders who pride themselves in knowing their customers, and they know their customers better than what the data would historically show, it gives them confidence that whatever decision that they're applying this to, they're using advanced machine learning capabilities.
So, if I'm a young adult just kind of prepping myself to apply for a mortgage, to buy a home, should I be worried or excited that increasingly algorithms, AI, bots, technology, that's going to be judging me instead of the humans who might know me?
That's a very interesting question because my answer is somewhere in between. They're not worried, they're not excited. It's basically table stakes for them. It's an expectation. Think about it this way. The baby boomer generation, Gen X, even some of the millennials, as technology increases or gets founded, it's the younger folks that take advantage of the new technology. So today, the Gen Zs or even the Gen Alpha, the ones that are growing up, they expect this kind of personalization and hyper personalization. They expect a lot of information to be evaluated and, someone knows something about them. What they don't expect is fraud or bots or, things like that. But to them, it's kind of like a cost of doing business. They also expect that. So if you were a young person preparing yourself to buying a mortgage, that mortgage experience should be hyper personalized, which you're hearing a lot at the FICO World Conference. Hyper personalization using a vast amount of data. And that's really what's happening right now.
As typically risk averse as they are, isn't it true that sometimes a lender will want to take a chance on someone or some organization that doesn't show up in the AI as kind of a gleaming candidate? Does this kind of eliminate the concept of high risk, high reward?
No, I mean, lenders, big lenders, even the mid-sized lenders, they're always testing, or they should be testing. They should be testing different strategies or different algorithms, irrespective of how they're built. So it's really a balance of a growth initiative versus, the long-term risk. And so when you're evaluating risk of someone, the risk doesn't really show up for another 1 to 2 years. So risk averse to me just means what your risk tolerance is. If your risk tolerance isn't that high, you'll still continue to test, but you're not going to evaluate it until much later on. So it doesn't eliminate the concept of high risk, high reward. I think what this does is accelerates the evaluation of whether or not what you're doing new is high risk or high reward.
So, in that loan assessment process that happens, what can AI do and what can it not do yet?
So as you know, AI can ingest whatever data, that they have. They could judge you or they could evaluate you whether or not you're credit worthy, and things like that. So the factors that come into a decision is very fast. What it can't do yet is, with a high degree of certainty and real quickly, is whether or not what you're doing new is profitable or is risky. Because the last time I checked, profit assessment still takes months and risk assessment still take months. So, you can process a loan, you can decide on a loan using new tools, but whether or not that loan is profitable or you're making the right decision for your bank, it still takes time.
Well, much of the criticism around and about generative AI is around where it gets the information that it uses, and bad AI generated information increasing exponentially, then feeding on itself. Yeah, turns out, not everything on the internet is true. Who knew? So
Yes.
how do you create kind of a walled garden, as it were, of financial information that's guaranteed accurate? Because I mean, we all know our credit reports are inaccurate. We have to check them all the time.
Yeah. So one of the things that, when I experienced at Equifax and also the other bureaus that I worked at, is the notion of data quality and also the notion of identity. The bureaus or any alternative data provider, they spend a lot of time making sure that their data quality is good, meaning the institutions that's buying their data or the institutions that's using their data to create scores, strategy, what have you, is safe and is sound. They spend a lot of time doing that. Is it perfect? No, it's not perfect, but they try to minimize that problem. And I think it also behooves the users of the data, whether it's the data scientists or the data engineers, that build the scores, the strategies, that they are using the data for its purpose, meaning, they have their own compliance guidance, they have their own regulatory guidance, whether or not they can use the data for the purpose that they're using it for. So, the beauty of what we've been doing in the United States and also in other parts of the world is, the notion of adverse action, right? You could put in a whole bunch of data in there, but if it's not safe or sound from an adverse action perspective, you can't use it. So I guess the bottom line, what I'm saying is data providers spend a lot of time, a lot of money in the quality of the data, but it also on the bank side, on the analyst side, they have to make sure that the data that they're using should be, or can be used for the purpose that they're using it.
Well, how is the transparent, non-bias approach AI is bringing to finance being applied to alternative forms of credit? And to kind of lay out for us what that means. What is
Mhm.
alternative forms of credit?
Yeah, so I think the notion of fair lending, underneath the umbrella of fair lending, one of them is bias, which incidentally, Stratify offers an unbiased product. And what it looks for is whether or not there is disparate treatment on the decisions that you're making or the scores that you're building. So transparency again in the next, I would say, 2 to 3 years will be table stakes for all types of credit, not necessarily just alternative forms of credit. And so for alternative forms of credit, I think in order for them to really roll out or be successful in their strategy or in their business model, they really need to look at a bias metric or a fair lending metric to make sure that what they're deciding or what they're doing is quote unquote fair and quote unquote unbiased. So, again, I think this is a part of risk management that's under the umbrella of enterprise risk management that will really start growing in the next 2 to 3 years.
Yeah, you brought up kind of an interesting dichotomy there because you're talking about transparency of the data, but at the same time, there's a dance to be made with making sure that it is unbiased and fair by keeping certain information, like, certain demographic information, blind. Is that what's happening?
Yeah, you have to. I mean, you cannot use demographic information, obviously, in the United States. Certain types of information as part of your decision. So, a lot of organizations are talking with third parties, other third parties, to run their bias metrics, their fair lending metrics, to make sure that those folks, that the decisions that they're making, that the institutions are making, and the scores that they're building is unbiased, and that's the unbiased activity has to be done by a third party where the bank can send demographic information that's not within the confines of the analyst, and so it's up to the third party to join that information together and run that analysis. But it's growing, it's coming.
So you're at FICO World. What are you hearing? You kind of touched a little bit on it, but what have been a couple of your biggest takeaways or kind of thought-provoking discussions that you've heard?
A lot on alternative data and the use of alternative data, and it's interesting because FICO is known for risk management, and fundamentally they're known for risk scoring and risk management. But I'm hearing, and I'm glad to hear, that the use of alternative data outside of risk management, in segmentation, in marketing, in pricing, things like that, is a field that's finally being talked about. The problems with alternative data is that in use within risk management is that you have to make sure it's FCRA compliant. But if you use alternative data in segmentation, in hyper-personalization, which is another topic that I'm getting here at FICO World, the use of alternative data from a segmentation perspective and an offer perspective, it's limitless, it's boundless, right? So the more information you have about Michael or Jose, then the more targeted you could be with your offers.
Well, Jose, thanks again for taking the time to be with us. I know you're busy out there, so if listeners want to find out more about Stratyfy or you, what's kind of the best way for them to do that?
Best way, look us up at our website, www.stratyfy.com. Be careful of the spelling of Stratyfy. And you can find us there. And the co-founder and the entire company will be there, and we'll be happy to answer your questions.
All right, I'll put a link in the notes so they can't go wrong.
Thank you.
Well, we appreciate it, and we'll let you get back to the convention. And for you listening, don't forget to subscribe to the show. There's a lot to be learned with every episode. We pack a lot in a very short period of time because we value your time. And if you want to see how aggregated financial data might be of great use in your business, just visit resources.yodlee, that's YODLEE.com/podcasts. And we'll see you next time on Data Driven Finance.